Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at patreon.com/inspireddisorder.
What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.
This is my top 5 things for kids that adults love. This is an episode inspired by episode 239 of All Fantasy Everything, where multiple comedians got together and drafted their top 5 things for kids that adults love. And I felt like I would put out my top 5 as well. It's a different format than their show, but this episode was 100% inspired by episode 239 of All Fantasy Everything. Go over there and give them a follow. It is one of my favorite podcasts and one of the major inspirations for me starting this show, Top 5. So let's get into it with my number 5 thing that's for kids, but adults love it, and that is superheroes. There is a thing that is happening in our culture where people don't want to grow up. They want to maintain their childhood nature, their childish things, the things that they love from childhood, the nostalgia of childhood, and they want to live that as an adult. This is something that there's not many things, if anything, that I am still into from 2 years ago, let alone childhood, but anyway, superheroes, definitely something that is for kids. I was going to be doing comic books, but there's a lot of comics that are not for kids at all. But superheroes are pretty much a kid thing, to believe in like these people with superpowers and doing these Cape Crusader guys. That was very much a thing of for children's entertainment. But as they grew up, as all these kids who grew up with superheroes, holding on to their childhood, it's like an identity for most people to exist within your childhood, or the childhood you feel like you never got in some cases. But yeah, superheroes are definitely something that I would say adults are in love with. But they're for kids. But let's move on now. This is my number 5. My number 4 thing that is for kids but adults love, and that is kind of the birthday event. Like having the birthday be this giant pinnacle of your year. Whether it be the people that have birthday weeks or birthday months. Like there are people in existence that will take the entire month of their birthday. So they have 1 out of 12 months is an entire month devoted to them. It is like the ego celebration to end all ego celebrations is to take a birthday month. But it is that same idea where, there's a big celebration to celebrate a person on their birthday. And that's something that really is for kids. The birthday party, celebrating your, as a kid. But like adults that do it is, it's one thing to celebrate your birthday. I get that. Some people do that. I do it, but I don't really try to take the day off and just be low key by myself. I'm not really celebrating. I don't have I can't remember the last birthday party I've had. It's probably in my 20s was the last time I had a group of people over and we all did stuff together as a birthday celebration. Not something I do, but to make it a giant event, to be it's some special day or whatever, is kind of something that I feel is more for kids, but adults will love to take. And it's similar to the superhero thing, where it's this kind of utter need for grown adults to act and live as if they're still children. In many ways. And I'm going to get to more of those ways because that kind of mentality fits very well with this kind of the things that are for kids that adults are just still into, and they love. So number 4 is birthdays, birthday events, kind of that putting the birthday, capital birthday. Moving on to number 3, my number 3 thing that is for kids but adults love is Disneyland. I mean, of course, Disneyland is something I loved going to as a kid. There's this magic of seeing these cartoon figures brought to life in characters that are walking around this park that you can go and visit all the different worlds that you saw in all the different movies. Like Swiss Family Robinson Treehouse, which I guess is a Tarzan house now. But back when I went, I haven't been to a Disneyland since I was a child. And it's for kids. But again, culturally, things are different. Culturally, it's very trendy for adults to act like children. And Disneyland, especially since Disney is purchasing all of human content, all pop culture is going to eventually be owned and distributed and licensed by Disney Corp, LLC, whatever their business title is. But because Disney is now the owner of Star Wars and putting out some horrible sequels to that overrated franchise, or they're buying up all the Marvel properties, buying up Fox movie properties, buying up everything left and right, to regurgitate and resell and repackage under the Disney banner. Probably also getting rid of a lot of movies. They're probably movies that will no longer be available in any format now that Disney owns them, because they don't want their brand associated with something that they bought in a big deal. So, you know, more and more Disney as a whole, I'm not a fan of. Disney's the reason I no longer watch the UFC. Disney is just it just kind of ruins things in a lot of ways. I don't enjoy one company owning everything, especially when it comes to like entertainment. There needs to be more diversity in entertainment, and this what Disney is doing is whatever. But Disneyland itself, I wouldn't mind going. I know it's expensive, extremely expensive. But I wouldn't mind going to Disneyland, but it's not like I have friends, I know people, and their identity is Disney. Like they have the season passes, they go all the time. They love Disney. They loved Disney before they owned Star Wars, but they also had Star Wars as part of their identity. So now it's just more of a Disney identity. And they love comic books, so that's part of their. It's just an all-encompassing nostalgia fest over at Disneyland, which again is just a bunch of adults holding on to this childlike fantasy of life. And it's okay. Everybody's entitled to it, but it's a disturbing trend that I find. So Disneyland is my number 3 pick for things that are made for kids, but adults love. Like there's a lot of adults that go to Disneyland that don't have kids, and they will probably never have kids. But they love Disneyland just as much, if not more, than children. But moving on to number 2. My number 2 thing that is for kids that adults love, and that thing is dolls/action figures, because they are basically the same thing, separated by gender norms of what they're both miniaturized human beings, miniaturized toy versions of human beings. It's my number 2 pick. I mean, it's more of a collector thing. Like adults aren't necessarily playing with the dolls, although guaranteed there are. Guaranteed there are adults playing with action figures and dolls as if they are children. That's not necessarily what I'm talking about when I'm talking about adults that are kind of stuck in that childlike wonder of what it was like to be a child. But definitely the action figures. To walk into an adult's house and see displayed toys especially whether they're in boxes or not in boxes. Like, I guess I can respect it if it's an investment on some level, but it's also kind of sad to walk into a place and see toys in boxes. That's just like, if it kind of feels cheap. It's like if you're going to own dolls and action figures, take them out of the box, give them a life. Don't keep them boxed up. But I get it. They're like, there's this whole investing kind of culture to it as well. But both ends of that spectrum of people, adult humans that have a collection and a love for dolls and action figures, for me, is mind blowing. Even the pop figures, that trend is like, why, as an adult, would I collect these plastic figurines to express as like I don't know, it just seems like a lot of junk and clutter and things that like remind people that you are a fan of genre, like other movies that those things are referencing. Yeah, I don't know. People that it happens. People love it. They collect the dolls and the action figures, and it's their thing. But it's like to me looking at it, it's something that I don't get. I don't understand. But it's definitely something that's for kids. These are literally toys that were made for and marketed to kids. But now that they've grown up and adults, and the same thing. It's just this arrested development of grown adults acting like children. But it's my number two. It's my number two because it's the thing. Like, I kind of get Disney, right? Like, it would be fun to go to Disney. Like, I would have, like, on some, I wouldn't be obsessed with it, but on some level, I would like to go to Disneyland just to experience it again. But it's not something that like I'm going to get into. Like, it's not going to be part of my being, my identity as a person to be like the guy that likes Disneyland. But I'm not going to start collecting dolls. There's no part of me, like, I don't get that draw at all. Like, I get kind of the financial draw of it, but there's still, like, even the people that want to collect them for financial reason also like them because they are this nostalgic thing from their childhood. But it's just, it's way too detached for it. That for me, it feels far more like it should be for kids than for adults. And I don't know, just the things that increase in value. There's the crazy. I mean, from like troll dolls and like Beanie Babies to, He-Man action figures. It's all the same thing. It's all adults collecting toys, children's toys, on a level where it's just they want to like hoard the thing, like this thing they didn't have as a child, and they want to now buy them all because they have that kind of money. And it's a similar thing that happened with the Beanie Babies and the troll dolls and all of those things. And that's why it's my number two. But moving on to my number one thing that I feel is 100% something that should only be for kids, but for whatever reason, due to a lot of factors, is something that more and more adults are shown to love. And that number one thing is public tantrums. Public tantrums is something that you would see and do see children doing in grocery stores, restaurants, movie theaters, everywhere you could go in public where children are. You might have a chance, there might be a possibility of witnessing a child going into a tantrum. Super normal thing for a child to do. There's a lot of things in this world that can make you feel and get intense and be crazy, and it makes sense for kids to be getting into tantrums in public. But for an adult, a grown adult of male gender, of female gender, of whatever race, color, creed, religion, there are adults, primarily racist white adults, but it's not specific to them, of people having tantrums. These anti-maskers tantrums, these Karens, tantrums, and not just like childlike tantrums that are just annoying, right? I mean, you see an adult have a tantrum in public, it's kind of pathetic to see, but they're also dangerous because they try, I mean, especially with the Karens, like before cell phone cameras, women, white racist women, would call the police on minorities and get them arrested under false pretenses 1,000%. The fact that we have any videos of women doing that currently is a sign that it has and will have been happening constantly. We're just seeing it more. Like same thing with police killing people and just being terrorists in general. We're seeing it a lot more. It's always been there. It's not like it's, if anything, those things have kind of gone down now that it's been exposed and you can. But cops are still, I mean, Coven just got sentenced to 22 and a half years for murdering George Floyd on camera, smiling into camera. So there's a level of not even caring that they are on camera, or they're filming their own tantrums, which is insane. January 6th, adult tantrum number 1, like that, just based on complete fiction, because some like father figure that all these dudes with daddy issues have, think he got wronged, so they have to protect their daddy. All these grown men protecting their daddy because he got wronged in the election. These adult tantrums that ended up in murder. But yeah, public tantrums is something that is for kids. That is something that should only be seen in public, happening with children. Children, and maybe like, mentally ill. I can understand having some tantrums there, just not being, I get that. But if you're an adult with no mental problems, you're like a fully functioning grown-ass adult, the last thing you should be doing is acting like a child and having a tantrum in public. And that's my nut, because it's like dangerous. Adults having public tantrums used to lead to jail time for like they got their way. Imagine like children getting their way every time they have a tantrum. That's what these grown-ass adults used to get away with. Like Karens used to get away with that shit. Believe all women, except for like the fact that people would have because of society, we were trusting women. And it sucks that when you have that trust, when people have this blind faith, the same way they have in Trump or in religion, when you have blind faith, you can justify anything. Anything is justifiable. If you want it to be justifiable. But anyway, public tantrums are my number 1. So let's go. Let me go over my top 5 things for kids that adults love. Coming in at number 5 is superheroes. Number 4 is the birthday event, capital birthday. Number 3 is Disneyland. Number 2 is dolls and action figures. And my number 1 thing that's for kids that adults love is public tantrums. Let me know what your top 5 things that are for kids that adults love are in the comments. I would love to know. I'm sure I'll get a lot of heat, a lot of Disney people who, whether you love superheroes or Star Wars or Mickey Mouse or whatever it is, I'm sure there's a lot of hate there. Feel free. Maybe you like dolls and action figures and it reminds you of this time where your grandpa gave you a thing and he died. I don't know. I get it. There's a lot of reasons, but if anybody defends adults having public tantrums, you are wrong. Everything else is debatable, but there's no way that can't be number 1. Let me know what your top 5 are in the comments, or hit me up on social media at Ray Taylor. And follow All Fantasy Everything and listen to episode 239, where Ian Carmel, David Borey, and Sean Jordan discuss and share and rank and draft their top 5 each for things that kids love that are for kids that adults love. Anyway, get yourself some amazing coffee over at stationhousecoffee.com and follow Station House Coffee on Instagram. It's the place that makes the small batch, single origin, premium coffee. It's brewed in Thetford Center, Vermont. It's shipped directly to you. Go over to stationhousecoffee.com and order yourself some amazing coffee today and let them know the Ray Taylor Show sent you. New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on IGTV, YouTube, and everywhere else podcasts are found. Binge the full week ad-free over at patreon.com/Inspired Disorder. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com and follow the show on Instagram at Ray Taylor Show. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!